This is Dr. Bill Deagle of NutriMedical.com, NUTRIMedical.com. If you want the best in functional medicine, do contact me. You can listen to the show from 12 to 3 Pacific, 2 to 5 Central, 3 to 6 Eastern. If you want to email me questions on a health issue, go to NutriMedical@drbilldeagle.com or call our order line. We're going to go directly over to some letters now. Hour 3 today, we had John W. Spring on, and we got to deal with some letters of his genius level geopolitical analysis and geographic analysis of the current situation. The first letter I have is October 19th, called Ceasefire or Pause for the Kurds and Turks in Syria and ISIS. And you can go ahead and read it, or I can read it, and then you can make comments. What would you like, John?
You go ahead and read it.
And then I want to stop and I'll have your comments. Dear Mr. President, because you may not have received my other recent email letters, I am hoping this one will be sent directly to the Oval Office and placed on top of your desk. If the current ceasefire or pause is correctly understood by me, it will terminate by the beginning of this coming week after the 120 hours have expired. It appears as if the entire 20-mile wide strip of south of the Turkish border in Syria will be surrendered to the Turks, and the Kurds who have lived and fought there must leave. During the entire war against the so-called Islamic State, Daesh, or ISIS, the Kurds proved to be our most loyal and effective ally. Within the same 20-mile wide strip in Syria, the Kurds are still fighting various factions and groups of ISIS. In addition, within the same area, they have many ISIS prisoners who return to fighting in Iraq and Syria when the Turks acquire those sites in a matter of days or hours from now because the Kurds are being forced in order to evacuate. Yes, there are communist factions among the Kurds, but former KGB officer Vladimir V. Putin is still a Marxist and socialist. Inside his office at the Kremlin stands a flag with a hammer and sickle emblemed by his desk. However, the entire situation in northern Syria is far more complex due to those from opposition groups who are against the regime of Bashar al-Assad in Damascus because they'll no longer have any site to flee to due to that area now being under control by Turkey. So this invasion from Turkey will probably please Syrian President Bashar al-Assad, whose army never helped the Kurds against ISIS. By the way, his father, Hafez al-Assad, was against the Kurds, although the Kurds have now fallen into the arms of the Assyrians by proxy. Right? I just insert that comment. I'm reading on. Besides America's honor and reputation from this betrayal by us against the Kurds, there are now so many other aspects of the Kremlin's global strategy that are real threats to our nation. It says, please contact me at once so that we can correct these geopolitical errors before time runs out. This is to the President. So I'd like you to give us your analysis of that. John W. Spring. So, John, this is pretty desperate. We've lost our reputation. We've surrendered to the Russians, Turks, and Iranians, and the Assyrians. We should dissect away Syria away from the Hezbollah, Iran, and Turkey, and Russia. And if we don't, we're guaranteeing a thermonuclear war in the Middle East. And, of course, the decimation or genocide of Kurds, even if they're now allied with Syria. There's many territories where they don't have a home country, and they're going to be driven out of cities that they contained in this so-called corridor of the oil fields. We're supposedly protecting the oil fields from whom? From ISIS? Or to give the oil to the Kurds? I don't think so. The oil fields are sitting on territory now controlled by Turks, aren't they?
Yes. It will be controlled by the Turks, and they will become the oil brokers leading to the European market.
Right. Now, the Turks don't have any natural oil in their area, so these oil fields are the first oil fields that the Turks control in the entire Middle East, aren't they?
That is...
and Erdogan is an egomaniac and a maniac for sure. And he's got alliances with, they said, one of the guys who claims with media in Ankara claims to be the Mahdi, or the final Muslim leader for the Islamification of the earth. And he's a major media genius, this guy that's allied with Erdogan. And when we tried to do a regime change a few years ago against Erdogan, the Russians gave a warning to Erdogan, and he was there prepared to make sure that he neutralized the regime change we were trying to do against Erdogan. So what we have to understand right now, Erdogan is extremely dangerous. He built the largest palace in human history. He asked last week from President Trump to have nukes. A year or so ago, he actually took over for a few days the Insulet Air Base. He took it over again just a couple days ago for less than 24 hours, and then asked for nuclear devices from Donald Trump. So Erdogan, imagine Erdogan with nukes. Man, oh man, how dangerous that is.
It's extremely dangerous because this will give a person who has Islamic aspirations now in the Middle East to have thermonuclear weapons at his disposal.
Right.
Which will simply upset any balance of power that might possibly still exist in the Middle East.
Well, and there's a lot of negotiating going on. I don't know if you know this, but 25 years ago, the Saudi Arabians asked for America to give nuclear weapons to the Saudis, and we decided not to, so they negotiated to get CC-3 missiles from China. And the Chinese would not give them nukes right away, but they're working on hard to see if the Pakistanis will give them nukes. The Pakistanis are a different Muslim group, but they're negotiating to give the idea that they'll give warheads to the Saudis. And, of course, there's some very dark alliances. Pakistan is allied with China right now, and China had joint military maneuvers a few months ago with Russia. So there's some very strange new alliances occurring with some of them very ancient enemies that could literally be an enemy to the West, to Europe, and to America, North America, Canada, the United States, Australia, New Zealand. And we could be seeing the alliances of the book of Ezekiel and 38 and 39. I am against you, O chief prince of Meshach, Tubal, and Rosh. That lists all the table of nations that are going to be fighting us. And those nations are lining up right now, aren't they?
Yes, they are. And this all came about when Vladimir Putin came to power within Russia.
Let's go to the next letter. It says here, the next letter is October 19th as well. And this one says, please read at once. This one says, the following letter should be at least to provide a clue as to how serious the current situation is in northern Syria, where the Kurds are preparing a genocide or final solution for the Kurds who were our most loyal allies, right?
Yes.
I hope you have received my earlier letter because it reveals the regional dilemma in the Middle East. However, perhaps I have not explained in depth what and who is really behind this and other incidents that are now happening throughout the world. Right? You may not believe that the nation is Russia and the leader is Russian President Vladimir Putin due to the influence of the intelligence advisors and close friends who are way out of their league when dealing with such high-powered professionals at the Kremlin in Moscow are almost as good as I am with intelligence analysis. Actually, my role is far more challenging and at a much higher degree of difficulty for being able to determine their diabolical plans before they become operational. Unfortunately, those at the White House who screen and vet your incoming email are unable to discern and forward the real McCoy, and apparently you may ignore them as being boring due to rather limited understanding of the geopolitical matters of military strategy. This is why you need to meet directly with me, with or without or your advisors being present. If you wish to record or videotape our meeting, please be advised that you may not wish to share all of it with everyone on your cabinet or staff. So I would advise you to review it before releasing it to anyone. John, I want you to comment on what you would say regarding this letter. It says, it may be hard to believe or understand, but time is rather limited for this aforementioned matter. So please contact me and make arrangement for us to meet face-to-face right away. This is with Donald Trump, POTUS. Please continue.
Well, unfortunately, as far as we know, neither of those letters ever reached his desk. At least that's the assumption I must make at this time. And this is a dilemma that we face. Unlike the time over 60 years ago when JFK was president.
Your letters did get through to JFK, and they cross-checked the information to see if it was valid. And even when they did the YouTube flight, they proved, yes, oh my God, there are missiles in Cuba. And rather than 90 million Americans dying in a thermonuclear attack by Russia, which could have been preemptive, and we wouldn't have missile defense back then either, you managed to avert it, which is annihilation back in 62. And how many years is that now? That's 38 years, right? Plus 19 years, which is 48 and 9, or 57 years.
Yes.
So 57 years ago, 90 million Americans would have died in a thermonuclear war.
Yes. Now, I have evidence now that I received from the JFK Library in Boston that he read my very first letter sent to him, and not only did he read that letter, but he wrote in the margin a little comment to refer my letter or analytic report to the State Department for further study.
Did you ever receive an award from JFK for whistleblower, for giving it a geographic data and analysis so they could confirm it?
No. But the greatest reward that I got from JFK was a short letter signed by him, written in such a manner that I would not be placed in jeopardy. And secondly, on his behalf, I received 2 additional letters. One from the U.S. State Department.
Did you frame those and put them on your wall in your study or your home?
I have them well hidden.
Okay, that's good. Let me read on the next letter. This is the letter from the 28th, which is Monday. What will happen to the Kurds in northern Syria after displaced? Dear Mr. President, what will happen to the Kurds in northern Syria after they have been displaced by Ankara, Damascus, and Moscow? ? When the Russian military police recently occupied Kobane, a Kurdish city located close to the Turkish border, 2 flags were draped over the side of one of the tallest remaining buildings. They were the flags of Turkey and Syria. The significance of these flags was to indicate that Russia has already arranged an agreement with Turkey and Syria that will threaten the existence of the Kurds. Furthermore, because Iran and Turkey have already completed a treaty, the only possible refuge for the Kurds in northern Syria would be located in Iraq. However, because Iraq now has very close ties with Iran, it is rather doubtful that the Kurdish people will be able to remain much longer. This means that the Kurds are being marked for extinction by a massive genocide, which will be much larger than what occurred to the Armenians over a century ago. Remember the Armenian massacre? It was over 1 million. Yeah. As for the oil fields in northern Syria, whom will U.S. armed forces be protecting them from? I have a big question on that. Who are they? Are they protecting to give the oil to us, to give it to the Kurds, to give it to whoever? Who's going to get it? Turkey's most likely going to get it. I am well aware that those same oil fields were once located within northwestern Iraq. Under Saddam Hussein decided to transfer them in good working condition to the father of Bashar al-Assad, and so the boundaries were also moved eastward, and they became part of Syria. In exchange, Saddam Hussein was given a large section of land inside Syria that had access to the Euphrates corridor, where Baghdad could be reached. In other words, it could actually go from one area inside Iraq to Baghdad. It was later from the Iraqi enclave that a large underground facility was constructed inside Syria. When the so-called Islamic State came to power, it served as the capital and headquarters for ISIS. Now, by the way, ISIS was created by SAD, the Special Activities in the CIA, in conjunction, listen to this, with Saudi Arabia and Israel. Israel is a co-author, and Mr. Baghdadi was actually an Israeli actor hired to be the titular head. So when they say they cornered him at the bottom of a cave with a dog barking and he blew up 3 children himself with an explosive vest, this maniac was an Israeli actor working for Assad. So Baghdadi, the name is actually the name of a canonized Christian saint 2 centuries ago by the Catholic Church in the Middle East. Did you know that? Is that weird or what? It's so bizarre. So when I hear them all, just like Trump is saying, who did 9/11? We did 9/11. We did Oklahoma City. I know, because they threatened to kill me because I got evidence from one of the 5 special op team. And And when they found out, they fired me and gave me death threats in 1995. And I said, Major Swinder and you board members, I know where you sleep, so if you don't give me a letter of reference and $50,000 in cash, I'm going to tell my Delta Force friends, and I'm going to take you out. You're not going to be able to find a connection to me. So the next day, I got the letter of reference and the $50,000 in cash, and I said, if you come within 500 miles of me and my family, I'm like Alien and Predator. I know you're coming, and I'm going to take you out. And guess what? They never came. Because I realized, as much as I have a white coat and I'm a doctor, there's a side to Deagle. You'd be better off to have the devil himself after you than Deagle if you try to cross me. Which is why when I periodically get death threats, I threaten them back and they shut up and stop. I don't get death threats anymore. I don't. And not unless they're insane and want to die. If they came here to Vista, California to harm me, they're going to be face planted and meet their maker. I've got very advanced weapons here that will not make it very nice for them. Okay? I'm going to read on the letter here. It's still my hope that I shall be able to talk directly with you about not only matters related to the Mideast, but also East Asia and Latin America, where we now face a major threat to our national security that is far more serious than the Cuban Missile Crisis, which has confirmed my findings from a year earlier. Now, I called the game Keno, which if you go to Vegas, the three balls, if they have the same numbers on them, you know you're going to win. The first ball I call the sewer net, the internet. Second ball I call intel agencies. I have people that I can contact inside the intel agencies, or they contact me after my shows. And the third ball is supernatural. God's giving me the ability to have remote visions, even standing visions, without taking ayahuasca or marijuana or any mind-altering drug. And he shows me when he tells me when to pray, and he will deliver things to me in knowledge and standing visions. Fully awake. And he showed me this 2 years ago, and that's when I started bugging you to research and find out if there were nukes in Venezuela. And I had visions about Russian submarines tunneling into the Orinoco River and Russian intermediate-range nuclear missiles being set up in Venezuela. And then, of course, in January, when I told us to rent and had your articles ready for us to publish, which, by the way, he changed the titles and then later removed them from his site because he was jealous. Jeff Rentz was jealous. I said, you know, you got to understand, he said, if you can get satellite photos, this is Pulitzer Prize winning, which means you, because you're the author, I'm just the inspirer, would get the Pulitzer Prize winning. I don't see you getting a Pulitzer Prize win. Even though within 2 hours of me praying, I got satellite photos. So people need to understand this confirms your research about the Antonov 124 jets and so on. So, you know, you have to understand Donald J. Trump. Yes, you have a prophetic role, which is why you have a half shekel in Israel with the same visage as Cyrus of Persia that set up the temple of Jerubbaal in the 5th century BC. And you have also moved the U.S. Embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. And unfortunately, you back the Israelis that are a small faction and the evil jellyfish Christians that want to build a temple that's the abomination that'll desolate. Because the real temple of the Most High God since the sacrifice of Jesus, Yeshua HaMashiach, the Father in the flesh, is us. There is no physical temple to be built because it's an abomination that'll desolate. And I've said that over and over again with experts like Ken Klein, whose family were Jews that survived, who's a preacher like the prophet Ezekiel on our show, and he'll be back on. He was on just this Monday at hour 3. Also on my show, other Israeli experts like, for example, Cody Snodgrass, who's a Christian, let's see, who's my other expert I had here? Pastor Carl Gallups, who's not only him, but also his Messianic Jewish friend, who's now a Messianic pastor in Israel, totally agrees. So, Donald Trump, you need to listen up, buddy. You need to have a face-to-face with John W. Spring at whatever expense. I'll pay for it myself. If I have to, I'll sell something to make sure that he stands and sits in front of you to tell you these things, because so far, you and your functionaries around you don't take John W. Spring seriously. Or Deagle, who inspired him to research and confirm my visions with his facts that show we're in grave danger and that Russia's playing an end-time game with us that could annihilate much of our population. People don't get this, do they? They don't realize what we're doing is we're playing an Armageddon game, I call it. A space chess game with the devil of a very high IQ, non-Russian drinking vodka, Rasputin, this midget from Russia, who is very evil, is a black belt in Russian Samba, who actually desires to rule the world. And he's getting pretty damn close, isn't he?
Yes, he is. And this is his wonderful opportunity. And it's not going to last much longer, which means China's running out for us.
One of the things that Donald Trump is doing now, he's developing a space force, and if he develops my missile defense system, which is laser net interferometry, no nation will be able to attack us with space-based weapons, nuclear, chemical, biological, delivered by missiles. And the problem is, you see, once Russia doesn't have an advanced missile force that can hit us, their useless has-been empire, and they'll no longer be able to enforce their global hegemony on the world because they have a tiny population of 140 million and their lifespan's dropping. The average males live less than 50 years of age because there's so many alcoholics and drug addicts in Russia now. Their fertility rates dropped to the point where he instituted years ago a fertility day in Russia so they can even have babies. The same mess is happening in China where their fertility rate's so low. 4 months ago they published that they have 1.8 million breed-ready females because they don't have any families being developed in China except males, which they have an estimated at least 36.5 million, but I think the numbers from my relatives, which are Chinese, my youngest sister is married to a man from Shenzhen, is they're probably closer to 100 million excess Chinese males. So they're heading to a geographic and, what do they call it? Demographic. They're heading toward a demographic Armageddon. They stopped the one-child policy, moved to two-child, but you have a third child. Not only do they not give citizenship to many of the second children if they aren't members of the Communist Party in China, the third child does not, if it survives, get citizenship, and they will abort the mother right up to the moment of delivery, even if she bleeds to death. That's the facts today. It's a disgusting country. And where we're going with this now, and I've had Gordon Chang on my show talking about the coming collapse of China, and I'm trying to get Bill Gertz on too, is we're at the crossroads here, and I talked about this in the last hour with Mark Gaffney. God's going to cause global and world events to happen, including earth changes. They're going to terminate the maniacs. The most serious of these events is going to be what's called a pole shift. And what's happening right now is we need to get through to Trump because we don't have missile defense. We don't have EMP defense. Even hacking into our power grid, our air traffic controllers, our sewage treatment plants, and our waterworks and electrical system. The Russians have the most advanced cybernetic army, and the Chinese have 250,000 of cybernetic, they call it the cybernetic blue army in Shenzhen, China, that can actually hack into our power grid and just totally destroy it, our air traffic controllers, and even our sewage treatment plants. People don't realize that we're dealing with a cyber war, and Xi, the so-called emperor for life in China because he changed the structure of the Chinese government, made the statement that he has published documents translated into English. He wants to control the commercial production of all commercial goods by 2025, and the beast system called, the AI system called, if you want to call it like Silicon Valley, that's coming back November 1st, right, the end of this week, right, on Friday,
yeah.
That he wants to control the beast, which is literally the Matrix. The Matrix is currently controlled by America with the primary node at Shreve Air Force Base. I was their doctor. I know more than any other human being on the entire system, including the space-based weapon system and artificial intelligence, anybody alive that publicly speaks about this. There's no one not even within a light year of my knowledge level. And we are in dire needs because America is doing great good in the world, but we do even more evil. And we are proxy for the British Empire and the Queen Reptile, the Queen of England, and the Rothschilds and the globalist Satanists that are running the world into the ground and are ready to reduce the world population through the green agenda and all the other foolishness. They want to kill most of the people on the planet and reduce the world population and do a geoclimatic disaster that will cause an extinction level event. And people don't get this. They don't think that this is really happening, and it is. They think I'm making this up. I'm not. I'm not doing this for entertainment. I'm not doing it to get credit. I'm not doing it so you like me. I'm telling the truth out there by geniuses like John W. Spring to say, unless we get Trump in front of John W. Spring, and he tells him you need, number one, to realize what the Russians are up to. Number two, you need to have missile defense. If something goes south, to give an example of a scenario, and this is not a prophecy or whatever, if we get in a conflict with Iran or Hezbollah, and it turns out that the Iranians decide to fire a missile at Israel, and Israel fires a missile at the Bushehr reactor. It's very probable the Russians will take that as a signal to fire missiles from Laur Chila Island, or even do an EMP weapon so they can have plausible deniability that was something else that happened. And if the power grid goes out in America, America will collapse. It doesn't need to have a nuclear war or a biological weapon. Simply the collapse of the electrical power grid will cause America to become a has-been. And that's what Russia wants. They want us to no longer be in their way of world hegemony through their nuclear weapons and their ability to hack into the power grid and the supernet. Now the Chinese are way behind. They're making alliances. In fact, the SWIFT system that the Chinese developed replaces the world financial overnight transfer of financial records. And the only thing the Chinese don't like is they don't like our system because we don't have Glass-Steagall of the bubble economy. But the Chinese are being forced by Donald Trump to make a treaty, and they're going to have one soon. And when they do, they have the first layer of this treaty, which basically means protection for intellectual property, right? Buying $50 billion of agricultural goods, and they don't have to transfer the technology to Chinese companies when they move to China, which is happening right now, or steal the U.S. or international patents. China is collapsing. People don't get this. I'm trying to get Bill Gertz on, and I've had already multiple times on now, our expert Gordon Chang, because a book written 10 years ago called The Coming Collapse of China. All these events are kind of interlocked, and the events literally of Donald Trump withdrawing from Syria, from northern Iraq, and literally surrendering the Kurds to the Syrians, is catastrophically stupid. Now, people have to understand, and I had a big argument with Josh Bernstein, who is of Jewish descent, but the guy is pretty brilliant about 90% of the time. But he strongly disagreed with me, and I said to him, when I disagree with you, and I have Syrian blood, my ancestors owned the largest caravan, the Bashes, that traveled between Damascus, Syria, and China for thousands of years. I've got Kohanim blood. My ancestor was Moses, okay? My ancestor in the 11th century was the general through the Shuf Mountains that stopped and killed hundreds of Muslims himself personally to stop the invasion of Beirut, okay? So I know this stuff organically, and I want people to know that, okay? So he disagreed with me, and he actually dropped the call so he wouldn't stay on the last segment a few weeks ago. He's done. You can disagree with me, but I want people to dialogue and explain why they disagree. And in terms of what you and I are saying, I totally agree with you. But I have a lot of additional data people need to understand. There's a spiritual side and a geopolitical side. And when they see anomalous behavior, like why would Israel even advise the United States to pull out of northern Iraq and Syria and let the Kurds be surrendered to the slaughter and a genocide, is because Saudi Arabia and Israel are run by SAD, the Special Activity Division of the CIA, especially since Presidential Directive 51, which is the last year of George Bush Jr.'s presidency, where he handed over a lot of the authority of the president to the SAD, so they're now under the Special Activity Division of the CIA, not the U.S. president. People don't know this, do they? If you read Presidential Directive 51, you'll know what the hell's going on, but most people don't know it, and the news isn't going to cover this. I cover everything, the spiritual side, the geopolitical side, the historical side, the guts of the multi-side battle. There's not one or two sides in the Middle East. There's probably 5 or 6, and they switch alliances. In fact, it's an ancient saying back 5,000 years ago in the Middle East. It says, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. That's how crazy things are in the Middle East, and they've always been that way. This is nothing new, is it?
No, it isn't, Dr.
That's why if you don't understand this and you're dealing with a bilateral thing, we got an enemy on one side and the other side in the West, like in Europe or North America, and you think, well, it's just a two-sided thing. No, it's like a 5 or 6-sided thing, and people switch alliances. Like, as you mentioned, Bashar al-Assad, the son of Hafez al-Assad, Hafez al-Assad was fighting and wouldn't support and was actually genociding the Kurds, and now the Kurds are allied with Bashar al-Assad, the eye doctor, because although the man's gentle, he's done also some nasty things himself to save the Assyrian and Damascus and save Syria from collapse by the West, because it's part of the PNAC documents to destroy Syria. It was part of the list of 7 nations they wanted to balkanize and break up. But people don't get that. They don't realize, left to themselves, Bashar al-Assad would probably be a gentleman that wouldn't do nasty stuff. But now he's allied with Russia, Iran, and now the Kurds have fallen into his arms, and this is dangerous. It's also extremely stupid, because if the Kurds get genocided, I guarantee you that things are going to get way out of hand here, and Bashar al-Assad will be forced to use advanced weapons, and if he gets in a conflict with Israel, Damascus will get nuked. It's in the Bible. So what I see coming is I see Armageddon, step by step by step. We're heading toward catastrophe. And Donald Trump's behavior, although some people want to criticize him, and it might even look good at the surface, because right after he does this stupid thing, he kills Baghdadi, and then he kills Baghdadi's one-up guy who is going to follow up. Baghdadi was an Israeli actor with the name of a Christian saint 2 centuries ago, who was the titular head as an actor of ISIS, which we invented. Please give me relief, people. This is something that we... Yeah, go ahead.
There's another thing that we should mention regarding this operation that Trump and his administration is taking credit for.
Right.
And that is that we were helped significantly by the Kurds.
Right.
Even after we more or less turned against them, some of the Kurds,
even after we withdrew, they're still fighting and doing battles for us.
Yes. And without their intelligence and information and actual actions, Benghazi would still be alive.
And by the way, the Kurdish women are just as good fighters as the males, and they're better aims and shoots. The Kurdish women were fighting in the battlefield alongside the men.
Yes.
Yeah, people don't know this.
The women are better
marksmen. Right.
Yeah.
Better marksmen. They know how to shoot between heartbeats. Do you know that? I'm a very good marksman. I can curl a wire at 30 yards, right?
That's outstanding.
Yeah. So here's what I want to say. In summary, this is not a single-sided or double-sided battle. It's a 6-sided battle with switching alliances and stupidity of Trump. And now the surrender. The winners are Russia, Turkey, Syria, and Iran. And the losers are Israel, the Kurds, and America. Yes. And now we have 10,600 potential ISIS fighters that will either be released by the Turks, or they will escape, or they were supposed to be transferred to their home countries in Europe, but their home countries won't even take them.
That's right.
So this is an insane thing, and this is in the midst of a so-called attempt to impeach Donald Trump for something stupid, because his comments were not made to try to manipulate the Ukrainians. In fact, people need to understand what we're doing. We didn't want Russia to take over eastern Ukraine, and we had the State Department literally help to support Poroshenko, who's the head of the prostitution, drug, they call him a chocolate king, but he's actually the drug king in there. And now he's replaced by a comedian and an artist who is now the head of Ukraine, and there was no quid pro quo at all. In fact, we wanted to give them the money to buy missiles, their anti-tank missiles, which we gave them before, so they could stop Russian tanks from coming across the border to take back Ukraine, because they took the an area already of Ukraine, ancient place that used to be has a majority of Russian citizens, and a large number of the people in eastern Ukraine are Russian-speaking. In fact, the Sarmat or Satan missile system was not built in Russia; it was built in Ukraine. People don't know this, do they?
They should.
Well, people don't know anything, to be honest with you. They don't know anything. What I want people to understand is Russia wants to re-exert the Soviet Union. They're extremely angry that we put a intermediate-range missile defense system in Romania and in Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia. And right after Donald Trump declared that the intermediate-range nuclear treaty was being violated by Russia, we put missile defense systems in Eastern Europe, and it really ticked off Mr. Putin, because those missile defense systems can easily switch over to be missile attack systems. So Putin's freaked out of his mind now. And by the way, the prevailing winds are from west to east, so if there is a nuclear attack even on Europe, that radiation will blow back over Russia. So Putin is suicidally, demonically energized, and he thinks he's somehow going to play a game and win. Putin is delusional. And if he's listening and anybody translates this into Russian, if you don't get rid of Putin, you Russian citizens and all you babushkas are going to die. Because if you start a war with America, we have weapons centuries ahead of you. And it won't just be nuclear weapons, it'll be scalar and other space-based weapons. And I don't care if you're 2 miles underground, you're going to die. All right? And that's for any other country that thinks they're going to take on America. Now, America needs to be sanctified. We need to be, because we have all these advanced weapons, we need to be sanctified because the digital mark of the beast and the digital system for hacking into human consciousness is not coming from Brussels or Moscow or Beijing or Johannesburg. It's coming, or Tokyo. It's coming from America. The beast is us. How's that? And nobody else except Dr. Deagle is saying that. Nobody's saying that the mark of the beast will come from America. I traveled 20 years ago to the 42 cities in Israel for the Prophecy Club, and I did my talk called the Iridium Satellite Project, because I know exquisite details of it. And all my experiences working at Schriever Air Force Base, taking care of the actual matrix and the Cray array. And all the scientists there, and I have a photographic memory and ability and knowledge in artificial intelligence, science in every area from astrophysics to geography to artificial intelligence to oceanography, metallurgy, and geopolitics. I have a breadth of knowledge that's superhuman. And God has put me through hell to know this stuff. And I want people to know it's not for my sake, because it's a pain in the butt to be who I am. I want people to understand we're at the end. This is the end game. And if things go wrong, Putin is going to nuke us, at the very least, with an EMP weapon. But more probably, if we get into a conflict in the Middle East with Bashar al-Assad and Damascus nuked, you can guarantee Russia's going to hit us with their weapons in their own hemisphere in Nicaragua and Laurel Island. They won't wait to do transpolar missiles coming over the North Pole or the South Pole like Putin announced in April of 2018 on one of his video conferences. They will hit us with missiles that are right in our backyard that'll take 20 minutes to destroy our cities or hit us with an EMP weapon. And people are delusional, think that Donald Trump's going to save them. Donald Trump is uninformed, and his advisors are either evil or devils of the most nth degree. And Donald Trump is a genius at business, but without our wisdom passed on him, especially you, John W. Spring, we are in grave danger of making bad decisions that are going to guarantee that the catastrophe will happen. Now, ultimately, if we are able to make a treaty with these countries and share missile defense, no one should die of a nuclear war. But we need ground-based validation. For example, if the Iranians would validate they're not going to make missiles to attack Israel or enrich the uranium, leave the mullahs alone. The young people eventually in 20 years will replace them. Because we put the mullahs there and the Ayatollah. I know from my Iranian friends, who I know personally, that we took out Mossadegh because he wanted the British Petroleum to build a chemical plant and plastics plant in Tehran. And then when the Shah of Iran was put in there, he decided to start agitating, and he had the Savat, which would kill people if the British ordered him to kill people. And he then started agitating, wanting to build a chemical plant and doing other things, high-tech transfer to Iran, because the Iranian people are not stupid. And they said, we're going to take your butt out, Mr. And what he did then is they put in the Ayatollah. We actually copied even the Ayatollah's tapes in Paris to make sure when he arrived, and we told the local military police and military in Iran to step down so they wouldn't stop us from having millions of people show up in the square for the arrival of the Ayatollah and the setting up of the mullahs and the Iranian totalitarian police state, religious police state of the, which was again supported by the British. People don't realize we're the greatest doers of evil on earth as the British and Americans now in the last century plus. We are the evildoers. We are the ones that are the grand puppet masters of evil on earth right now. And we're ready to do the final steps of the Mark of the Beast system. And some people know this, but most people are delusional, especially Americans who go to a Christian church, or they think, well, you can never do wrong. How about America does great good on earth? And if you're rescued because you have a famine or major storm hit you, there's nobody better than America. But we do more evil than anybody else that ever existed. We are the Atlantis. We are the Atlantis of the modern world. Greater doers of great do good, and an unbelievable, mind-boggling, demonically energized ninth ring of Hades, evil.
And this is why we need a spiritual reawakening in America.
We don't have it. The churches are dead. I asked the church locally here, North Coast Church here, if they talk about prophecy a few years ago, because I very rarely went, but I went once, and I asked the pastor, and he said, no, we don't understand prophecy. We're the welcoming committee. I said, you're kidding. I said, well, I'm a Christian, and I've studied the Bible, and God's literally dealt with me, and I know things from first-hand experience that are prophetic, and I would love to talk to your church. He said, oh, no, you can't do that. So they don't want to even hear from somebody like me that's a layperson that might know things that they need to know, or challenge them to read scriptures and cross-check it with their own prayer life. No, they don't want to hear that. Did you know with my shows, which have been now all over the world and millions of people listening, I've only been asked once to speak at a church at Living Waters Fellowship in St. Paul in the winter of 2000, early 2000. I think it was like February or March 2000. Not once has anybody said, please come and do a video link to my church and speak at my church about XYZ, whether it's abortion or missile defense or Armageddon or anything else. But my videos are getting out, and I bring on experts like you, John W. Springer, who's also a believer. You're a Christian brother. But we're co-prophets. We're co-apostles of the end times. We're part of that collective that's said in the Bible, and they said there was a collective of the 24 elders before the great throne room of God. That's the 12 elders of the first beginning of the church and the 12 elders of the end of the church. I'm one of those last 12 elders, and so are you. We are ones bringing the final truth to the people before God's judgment comes and grace ends. Grace is going to end soon here for America and the world, isn't it?
Yes, it is. But God's been very patient, very understanding.
Right, but you know the most vile thing you can do? More vile than a mass abortion or even abortion or even euthanasia is to disrespect the words of the apostle prophet bringing grace to the world. Spitting on the words of the prophet or apostle trying to save you by giving you a relationship with the Most High is the most vile and deepest sin on earth because it ends grace and brings judgment. People think it's really bad to kill someone or even unborn babies. That's horrifying and it deserves judgment and death. But the most vile thing that ends all grace is to spit on the prophet or the apostle giving truth. There is no sin greater.
Yes.
And the reason is it's not for our sake. It's for the sake of those that need to listen. Our people in America, our politicians, are on the left and the right, aren't listening. They're either communists or leftists, or globalist bankers or capitalists, they call them. I don't care what label they put. And they're involved with PNAC, or they want to expand the military-industrial complex. They like chaos. They don't want us to resolve issues like, for example, doing a blitzkrieg and clean out the enemy. No, they want to continue the battle. That's why if we stay in Afghanistan, we'll be there for many years to come. There's no intention of getting out of there. It's part of the game.
Right.
Just like I had one of these engineers taking care of the C-130 Hercules back in the mid-'90s, and also took care of the Black Op helicopters, and he had to panic. He had to call me to come to his office, to my office, and he said I was taking care of the Hercules C-130 and the Aurora Space Fleet, and I came back from Afghanistan, and they're going to kill me because they found out. I said, what did they find out? He said the plane was full to the gunnels, Hercules, shrink wrapped with pallets of heroin from Afghanistan. I said, oh my God. He said, what are you going to do? He said, he was sweating. He was like freaked out. They're going to kill me. They're going to kill me. Guess what? 3 days later, they did. People need to know who is this guy Deagle and what's he been through. Living hell to know what I know. And it's not open to anybody's damned opinion. Now, there's facts I need to get clarified. Like, you know a lot more facts about, historical facts about Afghanistan and Syria and the Kurds and so on. But it all integrates into one grass, if you want to call it, panorama of what I see of death and destruction coming real quick. And this latest move by Donald Trump has moved us much more quickly toward the end, doesn't it?
Yes.
It means that how would anybody respect us in the future, our so-called allies, and it also means the Kurds are being abandoned unless we actually move more troops back in there. And then they say, we're going to protect the oil fields for who? I still don't have the full answer. Who are they going to protect it from? So the Turks have oil now and money? So some of the Kurds are going to... No, the Kurds aren't going to get the money. They're only going to be allowed to live there. In fact, Erdogan said that he will crush the skulls of any Kurds if they're within his territory, within 20 miles. So who's going to get the money? My guess is probably going to be Turkey.
Yes.
And Turkey, by the way, as part of their blackmail, wants us to transfer codes and give him nuclear missiles in the Insulet base. So people need to understand, they've been since 1951, Turkey since a member of NATO. Turkey wants nukes now. Oh my God. Imagine Turkey with nukes.
Yes. And keep in mind that they're more aligned with Russia than they are with the West.
Right, they're buying new missiles and so on from Russia, and now we're still a member of NATO. Why haven't they met to actually remove them and de-license them so they can't build M1 Abrams tanks and anti-tank missile systems and so on, which we've licensed them for the last 20-some years to build inside Turkey? We are suicidally stupid and geopolitically hell-bent on suicide. Not only of personal, but of our nation. And the Turks are like all Muslims, Taqiya and Maruna. They will lie until we die. We've had Dr. Bill Warner on this from politicalislam.com, Tennessee State University professor. This is not open to people's opinion. Well, that's your opinion, Deagle. How about you read the Hadith and the Quran and lineal time in actual English properly translated by our professor, and then argue with me. You can't argue because it's not open argument. It's just ugly facts. It's like reading a deposition of a personal transcription of a phone call by someone admitting a crime in a court of law. It's not open to anybody's damned opinion. But people think they can. It's like looking at an MRI or CT scan. You can see a tumor. The tumor's there eating away at the bone, and you want to argue with it. It's like, excuse me, there's no room for argument. It's just a tumor. And I don't think people understand that with Trump. You know, people say, well, you got to like Trump or not like Trump. Look, he's a pre-Christian. He's not a Christian. He's probably a high-level Mason. He's a narcissistic egomaniac. He's fantastic at business. He's strengthened our economy. But he's marching us like lemmings over the cliff toward a catastrophe. And the Democrats are even worse. I mean, the Democrats are full up, going to bankrupt the nation, kill babies at or beyond delivery, and want to have open borders and give health care to anybody that walks in here. There's no way, unless they can impeach Trump, that the Democrats are going to regain power. They have committed geopolitical suicide. And Trump is no angel, man, because he's marching us 5G network into the mark of the beast, genetically modified food and fracking that causes earthquakes. So everybody say, well, it's a choice of one or the other. That's like going to what I call a Halloween surgeon, that you have a choice. Well, you have two surgeries you have to do to get out of this hospital. We can cut off your legs, or we can gouge out your eyeballs. But either one you're going to have to do before you can leave the hospital. That's what we're facing, isn't it?
It's quite a dilemma.
It's a dilemma, and people don't get it. And unless we get through to our leaders like Donald J. Trump and dissect them away from the globalist maniacs or advisors, because the way he operates the government is like a game show host. Truth or consequences. He listens to the fourth person in the panel that has a convincing argument. He says, yeah, I think we'll do that. He doesn't get good advice from the public or people like us in the trenches. He listens to the fourth person in the game show. That's what's going on right now with Donald Trump, isn't it? Now, to be honest with you, in some ways that's even better than the globalists that are in the Democratic or previous Republican parties like George Bush Jr., who's being completely run by globalists. He had no power at all. Just like Dick Cheney. Dick Cheney, who shot people in the face with guns at his shooting facilities, who's had multiple heart transplants. Dick Cheney, I call do you know what his name was inside the White House? This is his actual name. He had not just 6 staff, he had 600. Dick Cheney's...
Quail Hunter, by any chance? No.
Yeah. No, you know what his actual name that he actually told people that you must use this name to address me in the White House? Prince of Darkness.
Say it again.
Prince of Darkness. That's Dick Cheney's name. They wanted people to address him orally, face-to-face in the White House or when they get audiences. Welcome back, Prince of Darkness. That's what Dick Cheney wanted to be called. Do you know that?
I know it now.
Mind-boggling, isn't it? People, oh, Dr. Deagle, I don't believe you. I said, well, then Google it. Most of it's out there in the sewer net. So I want people to grasp this. What we're dealing with is so damned evil and so twisted, the average mortal mind can't conceive it. You see, the thing is about me is I'm not afraid to ask questions to completely empty out my consciousness, so I start to become so empty that I can start apprehending the anomalies and then asking questions that tell me the answers to why the anomaly exists. People say, what's genius? Genius is willingness to pursue questions, not answers, that explain that the anomaly or the paradox is the answer to a question you haven't asked yet. The anomaly is the answer. The paradox is the answer. The key is not perceiving that you figure out the answer. It's asking the right question so the anomaly makes sense. Does that make sense?
Exactly. Yes, it does.
Right. And people say, how smart are you, Deagle? Well, I measured my IQ in grade 9. It was so far above 200 they couldn't measure it. You're weird, Deagle. I said, yeah, people realized it. I'm not really weird. I just consider myself average. I just ask questions. People think, well, you feel you're real smart. I said, I'm just curious. Curious. And I can't deal with cognitive dissonance and lies. And that's aggravating to people because they'd like to lie. They're part of what I call the academic or religious liocracy. The people that try to lie to you and make you deal with your mental blocks, I call playing with your mental blocks. I can't play with mental blocks. My brain goes, Will Robinson, warning, warning. Remember the movie about the, what was the name of the movie about Will Robinson and dealing with the supercomputer? So, yeah, so anyway, I want people to grasp this. Your letters and your information here are vital to get through to Trump. Trump is a powerful, energized, high-level Scottish Rite Mason, narcissistic game show host running the presidency. Does that make sense?
Very much.
And if you understand it that way, you realize, like, no wonder he's so good at these large gatherings in his stadiums. The guy's really entertaining. He's funny. He's the best stand-up comedian for Donald Trump is, guess what? Donald Trump. And to be honest with you, if we can get him on side, this guy will be the greatest president in human history. If he'll listen to you and I and give him Christian wisdom and started giving him a prayer life to submit his ego to the will of the Most High God, he will be the greatest leader since King David after he killed Uriah to get his wife Bathsheba. He will be the greatest leader in modern history. But right now, the man is hell-bent on doing stupid things that get everybody so aggravated that half of the American population wants him impeached. And these are primarily Democrats and young people that don't have the brains to know which way to wipe their butt. And they think they're going to get away with this. They're going to vote on Thursday to impeach Donald Trump. The Democrats are committing geopolitical suicide. And unfortunately, if Trump is unrestrained and doesn't get our advice, he'll even do more stupid stuff, putting us even more danger. This is incredibly stupid what he did with the Kurds. And I disagreed with Josh Bernstein. He said, well, I think the only ally in the Middle East is Israel. That's not true. It should be Bashar al-Assad in Syria. And get him away from doing stupid things like, crazy stuff like his father, Hafez al-Assad, that was killing people or that crossed him the wrong way. Bashar al-Assad is turning and being forced to turn by circumstances. We don't want him to do that because his alliance now with Russia, Iran, Hezbollah, and these maniacs like Turkey put us all in grave danger. Yeah, they're 7,000 miles away. That doesn't stop us from dying. The world's a very small place with weapons nowadays. So I want people to grasp this, that we're dealing with a very, very serious problem Donald Trump is like a child playing with a detonator switch for nuclear warheads. He doesn't get it. Neither do all the globalists around, including Pompeo and John Lightning Bolt, I call him, and all the people he's appoints to the United Nations and everywhere. And even the situation in the Central and South America, the reason why these people are trying to escape there, they're not educated. They live in narco states that are run by drug cartels that are directly allied with the SAD, or Special Activities in the CIA. They're trying to escape Nicaragua, and other of these 3 states in Central America or South America or whatever, because they're unlivable. And we've made it unlivable because they want to divert up to $2 trillion of drug trade into weird projects like Bechtel making underground cities, genetic engineering, off-world space projects, and other weird stuff where money's not under the surveillance of the Congress, Senate, or even the presidency. And since the Presidential Directive 51 by George Bush Jr., the presidency is on a need-to-know basis, doesn't even know what the hell's going on. I doubt if Trump knows what I even know about what's going on with many of these projects. I'll make a bet the man is very, very only got a need-to-know basis of very minimal amounts of information about these things.
I'm sure you're correct on that.
Which makes me really concerned. If somebody like me, retired at 67 and a half, living in Vista, California, knows more than the president, he's making world-class decisions, that's seriously bad. Right?
Yes.
So I want you to close, John. We got to get you in front of Trump. Trump needs to listen to you. He needs to understand that you're a genius of understanding the geopolitical analysis of this. And I like your analysis of saying you're not a whistleblower. You're a geopolitical analyst showing exactly where the trajectory of all this stuff's going. And you showed it in your letters today that if Trump doesn't realize what he's done to the Kurds and to the people in the Middle East, he's guaranteed. You can almost hear a giant tick, tick, tick as the warhead of the Middle East is ticking toward a nuclear catastrophe. It's almost like all of a sudden he lit the fuse, so the ticking sound has started now. Hasn't he?
Yes. Well, the president needs to become aware that time is running out very fast. We're in a very crucial situation.
Right.
A situation that has been created primarily by what I refer to as my counterparts in Moscow at the Kremlin, who have orchestrated one of the most massive geopolitical events that's about ready to take place at any moment. In fact, it has already started, as we can see in the Middle East. It's already started here.
Right.
Yeah,
that's why I see this, and this is converging to where even the cell phone and other digital companies. You know, Microsoft is not building a new Microsoft 11. Do you know what the next system is? It's AI. It's AI. The new operating system is going to be artificial intelligence. It's going to have a separate intellect. It'll be like a digital person. Did you know that?
Yes.
People don't know where the hell this is all going. I can tell you it's not good. It's a nightmare. People think Halloween's bad. Well, what I know is a lot worse than Halloween.
Yeah.
And people want to say, well, I just think that's your opinion. No, it's not. It's called science and history and facts. And it all converges when you look at all the things connected, that people that are ignorant like Trump are actually marching us toward the edge like a bunch of lemmings about to jump off the cliff.
Yes.
And the Democrats are so boldly insane. They want to kill babies even after birth. They want open borders. They don't want even people in prison anymore. They want to let criminals loose when 6% of the U.S. population is, by their very nature and biochemistry, toxic predators that are dangerous to have in public. 6%. And we wonder why we have drug addiction. It's because we have a hopeless population. I know exactly why people are the way they are. They're escaping from a painful world by taking drugs. It's not just physical pain, it's psychic pain they're escaping from. Hopelessness. That's what's going on, isn't it?
Yes.
And people don't want to say that, oh, my church is hope. No, you don't. You've got what I call Armageddon milk and cookies. There's no Sabbath, what I call hidden manna or truth, spiritual food for your spirit given by the churches or the governments of the world. Young people nowadays are hopeless. They're bankrupt from going to school for 6 years and don't get a job. They're in debt up to their eyeballs, so they can't buy a home or have a family, so they're staying with their parents still. They wonder why the society is heading toward communism because they're in debt so far. They figure if the nanny state can go to the magic money tree and save them, that's okay too. So they're going to listen to AOC, this maniac, and the Kurd and the squad, or Liar Watha, Elizabeth Warren, or Bernie Santa Claus, this guy that he's like the Krampus, this pre-Christmas devil that wants to be communist because he went to communist Russia for his honeymoon. To honeymoon in Russia, imagine communist Russia and Soviet Union before they collapsed in 1989. Bernie Santa Claus went to the Soviet Union for his honeymoon. Did you know that?
Yeah. Well, I didn't know that, but I know he was a very strong anti-war, pro-Viet Cong activist.
Yeah, well, all of that was by the oil companies. The oil companies set up the Vietnam War. That was all done by, again, British Petroleum, and the oil companies wanted to do oil exploration off Vietnam. I know. They tried to recruit me in grade 10, and the recruiting officer went to Dartmouth, Nova Scotia, because my cousin, who was a Christensen in Boston, warned me that I was going to get a draft card. And so when the draft official arrived and grabbed me on my way home for lunch from my high school in grade 10, I took the draft card and tore it up and said, you need to stick this where the monkey stuck the peanut. He said, where's that? I said, rectally. That was my draft card. My buddy, who was stupid, decided to volunteer and go into 6 months training, and 2 weeks after he arrived in the Mekong Delta, he ended up face down dead in a rice paddy. Okay, so I have a very clear understanding of how they want blood and money to be able to pay for their demonic activities. And my blood was not used by those morons to pay for more of their games. Just like the blood of the unborn, they want to have more abortion. The demon rats, I call this, like George Pirro, who's also Syrian. The Democrats, I call the demon rats. So hopefully people will grasp what's going on here. Dr. Deagle doesn't know some of it. With the help of the Most High God and with help of geniuses like you, I know everything. And the hell that God allowed me to be put through. So when people say, well, you think you know some of it, Deagle, I know the panoply of everything. I don't know some of the details. I can always learn. But the overall scope of what's going on here, I know exactly what the hell's going on. It scares the crap out of me that people think that everything is okay even under Trump. Oh, we're fine. Or they want to make a decision that what he did with the Kurds is okay. It's not okay. Oh, it's good. Right after he did this stupid stuff with the Kurds, he killed Baghdadi, and then he killed Baghdadi's second in command. And then they talk about this hero dog that, is injured, but the dog's back in duty. Now he's fine. That's all you can hear in the damn news since this happened the other day when Baghdadi's in the back of a cave and blew himself up and 3 of his children. It's sickening. They're constantly manipulating us and trying to tell us fake stories so that we'll believe they're BS. Storytellers from hell, I call it. Right? Who the hell is Baghdadi? Baghdadi was a functionary of the Mossad, an actor hired by Mossad and the Special Activity Division of the CIA, Assad, to run ISIS for us, to be a terrorist for us, just like Agent Epstein was a sexual pervert doing human child sacrifice in this fancy island, and the devil blackmailing world leaders around the world by doing sexual videotaping and audio taping of them so they could be completely in our circle of influence and control. That's why I refer to him as Agent Epstein. Oh, no, Dr. Deagle, it's not that bad. I said, you're a moron, and the only way for it to be cured is for the Darwin effect. What's that? It's called death. You're going to be so stupid, you're going to make decisions that will eventually shorten your life and kill you. Oh, that's terrible to say that, Dr. Deagle. I said, well, you better damn well start listening to Deagle, because what I see going on, we need to repent. America needs to repent. We need to repent. And so does Trump. Trump needs to repent of being an arrogant SOB. So do the damn Democrats. They're so over the top now. They say obscene things. Do you know that 93% of abortionists that do first trimester abortions would do the third trimester? And every one of these damn Democrats supports late-term abortion or even infanticide. Damn. Have they ever stood through an abortion and see a jigsaw baby and little parts come out of the mama? that if you miss a part, the mother's going to die of purple sepsis or hemorrhage to death? No. But they're arrogant enough to shove it in your face and say, you know what? We're going to kill babies right after they're born, even if they get a birth defect. Whoa. So I want people to understand this is the end of the road. God's not going to tolerate us anymore. Unless we repent immediately, America will cease to exist. If there is a future for the human race a century or two from now, and there's a remaining residual presence of population on the earth, they will think it's a delusion or a legend that a nation such as America even existed. It'll be thought of as a bizarre lie.
Yes. America must repent. We must have a great awakening. And it's not going to be done through the churches.
It's going to be done, you know what it's going to be done through? Shockucation. I don't do education, I do shockucation. I grab the intellectual paddles and slap them on either one of your temples and give you 400 joules of intellectual. Oh my God, Deagle, I can't handle it. Good. I hope you're having an intellectual seizure. Maybe you'll wake up. Shut up, Deagle. You know what? I had somebody the other day on a report here after I did the report for Deborah Tavares last week. You just need to shut up, Deagle, and let Deborah talk. Listen, Deborah is very good at grabbing documents. She knows almost no science at all. And yesterday, which is good because when I had Deborah on, I got to insert some science. I had one person made a comment. Millions need to know what you just said about how both space-based weather modification weapons, etc. Deagle. You know why? I back up what she says, just like I back up you. But I'm not going to shut up. I don't have a shut up gene. And if I need to pontificate or say something, it's because it's essential for your spiritual and physical survival. So don't dare think you're going to say, well, if you just shut up, Deagle, and let your guest talk, everything's going to be fine. No, this is not entertainment. This is shockucation. I'm going to shock you into reality out there. If you think you know better than me, come into my cage match and it's going to be ugly. I'll do an intellectual vivisection that's going to hurt like hell. Because I'm going to take lasers, scalpels, intellectual scalpels, and dissecting and bone separators, and we're going to do a mental and intellectual autopsy on you without anesthetic while you're alive. And I'm going to put your intellectual body parts and intellectual parts, spread them across the table like an autopsy, and we're going to just see if you can actually match up against Deagle. Not going to happen. People, that's not very nice, Deagle. I said, why are you in delusional mind? I said, I'll die for you, but I won't put up with this centillion of crap from any lost and confused and self-destructive human being on earth, because I've got the wisdom of the Most High God in me, and I'm literally, every day I do things, I'm literally begging the devil and the dark side to kill me. And believe me, God's had to resurrect me multiple times from death or near death just for doing the right thing. You would not believe the hell I've been through as early as January of this year. And without the God deciding, you know what, I'm going to take that little DOA baby 67 and a half years ago. I'm going to take that little baby 60 years ago. I'm going to take that man 5 years ago. I'm going to take that man 11 months ago, and I'm going to raise his carcass from the near death so that he continued to blabber to wake up the dead and dying population that's not only spiritually dead, but heading toward a suicidal end to their physical life on earth. And if they think I'm not nice, turn off the radio, walk away, and die. But if you want to hear, after you hear, you need to do three things. Research, cry, and then pray face down, not on your knees, but with your nose on the floor to the Most High God. Is this guy Deagle a liar, or is he telling the truth? And does he care for me because he has the compassion of the Creator God, or is he just an arrogant SOB? I'm not. I have been crushed down. I'm a crushed Christian, like a perfume to the flavor of the Most High God. I'm not here to do this because I want to get you to like me. I'm here to save your butt. I'm like a firefighter, and you're trying to grab the Scott Air Pack off my nose so that I'll suck in the smoke and die with you coming out of a burning building. I'm sick of it. People thinking they want to attack me when I'm trying to save their life and their spiritual soul and their nation. I'm sick of it. I don't want to put up with any more of it. You want to attack me? Have the balls to call into my show and complain, or call me after hours, and you're going to get watched for like you never had in your life. And people need to understand that I'm not going to put up with it anymore. I put up with even a little centillion of it, it's over. You want to take me on? It's going to be painful. Not for my sake, but for your sake, so that you don't die spiritually as well as physically. That's how bad things are. We're at the end of human history now, aren't we? I'm so frustrated that I have a genius like you, and for 18 months, the most frustrating thing is I prophesied in August that on the 12th of September, you were going to get a letter from POTUS, Donald Trump. That letter is an echo of letters going back 18 months earlier that showed he didn't get a thing, and it was just his functionaries around him that tried to get you to shut up and vote for him or give him a donation so he has more money to advertise. It wasn't to listen to what you had said, because all I did was say, listen to John W. Spring. He basically frustrated the hell out of you and me by saying his functionaries, oh, well, we got dual-layer missile defense, so everything's fine. It's not fine, right?
No, not at all.
So anyway, I want to close. I want to say a little prayer. Dear God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may the Lord understand my spiritual rage against the darkness and against the ignorance of those who want to attack the messenger of light, which is me and my cohort, John W. Spring. May you repent of being ignorant and wanting me to shut up. May you pray what we've said is the truth. And may you take action, which is to support us by sending maybe a small donation to John so we can get a ticket to see the POTUS in Washington, D.C. But if we do not soon get through to Donald J. Trump, and we do not soon take this elderly man who's a genius who saved us from a Cuban crisis, America will die like the whimpering disaster I saw as a little boy 8 years of age high above the earth, when the Most High God said, "Behold!" And he pointed toward the earth, and I saw fireballs everywhere. And after the seventh, behold, and I was crying hard, he swung around and held my little hands above the heaven, about 400 miles above the earth, and said, "Why did you show me these things?" And I'm crying really hard, and he says, "At the time of the end, you will know, and you will tell my people." And today, God help us all, I am telling you. Today, 60 years later, I'm telling you. Almost 60 years later. God help us. If we do not repent, don't repent to me. I'm just a messenger. I'm the letter carrier. I'm the guy that walks up to the door. I got a letter from God. I'm the bait bucket guy. I'm not a fisherman. I bring the bait bucket for the Creator. He's the fisherman. I'm not going to save you. God is the only one that can save you. I don't elevate myself. I am a miserable sinner saved by the grace and blood of the Most High God, who's repented and walked with the Father now. And unless you do so and have a heavenly relationship with God, you are going to die. Not just a physical death, a spiritual death, people. And so your nation. May the Lord God bless us. May we get John W. Spring before the president before the next election. May we get the president to start getting a set of wisdom so his decisions are based on godly principles and not on stupidity or globalists on the left or the right that are pushing him. Thank you, John W. Spring. Take care.
Thank you for having me on your program. It's been an honor.
Yeah. Take care. God bless.
Lord bless you.